Shalom, my name is Harry Rozenberg. I am helping curate this course, documentary on the lost tribes of Israel, and I'm very honored today to be sitting with Amir Dromi. It's a pleasure to have you and giving us your time. This is a continuation of our subject on the research of the 10 lost tribes of Israel, or the scattered house of Israel. And Amir has an extremely fascinating story where he was in search not only for the 10 tribes of Israel, for a very specific remnant of the 10 tribes of Israel, or for the greater house of Israel, who are considered the Bnei Moshe, the children of Moses. If you look in the Torah, you don't really see much about the children of Moses after the story of Moses. And if you really think about it and wonder what happened to them, there's a really fascinating story ahead of us. So I'd like to begin asking Amir a few questions, if you don't mind. Thank you for your time again. And we'll try to paint a picture over here.
Okay.
Good. So now, if I was correct, you were sent, or you went in search for the lost tribes.
I was sent, but before that I sent myself on my personal journey in life that brought me to the areas that I was later on sent by rabbis in search. Then they approached me after they had heard of my previous travels.
So you're saying you were a journeyman?
Yes.
You went exploring the world, just...
I finished the army in the Yom Kippur War, and we were all shaken up. Friends killed, wounded, and we are from the hippie tribe of those times. So I tried to get away from it all, and I decided just to take a backpack, and I walked from Turkey to India. And that's how I started my travels.
Incredible. And when you came back to Israel afterwards, word had gotten around that there was a Jew who had gone to these places, and it coincided with the desires of the rabbis to find people who were familiar with there, because they had an inkling that there were certain Israelite camps that had to be found out there.
True. It started out with Pidyon Shvuim. There were some Israelis that were arrested in far-off lands. Pidyon Shvuim is that's when you take captives out of their prisons or whatever, Jews. So there were Jews that were put in jail in far-off lands, and when rabbis heard that I had been in those lands, they asked me to go and help them out. And after it was successful, then they sent me for the wigs of the women, that there was a halakha sort of debate of what is going on, if it's kasher or tameh or whatever. So I was sent there, and after that, when I managed to do those two projects, I think on the better side, then they heard of my travels and they sent me in search.
So prior to this mission of going to find the tribes, you already had an extensive history of traveling
Yes.
these regions across the Silk Road into India.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So now, describe to me, if you can, what's going on. The rabbis sit down with you and they're telling you that there's a mystical community hidden somewhere in the mountains behind the river called the Sambatyon, where the Bnei Moshe exist, the children of Moses, and they think they know where it is and they want you to go on a recon mission. That must have been a wild conversation.
That's more or less, you summed it up in 2 sentences. It went on, and they gave in all the information, the written information that is scattered in the literature that from the ancient history to the recent history. There were all kinds of claims of meetings or knowledge that was passed on, and they gave it in to me to read up, so I fill myself with what is known. And it's a project that is actually more hidden than known. It's not that they told me, okay, go there. That's where it is. They told me, okay, now tell us what you think with all this. Where does it sum up to?
Okay, so
that's how it
and these were leading rabbis, like
very leading rabbis.
So this is something not considered strange to the Jewish people. This is something ingrained in our...
This is something that has been going on ever since they scattered the Jews. You are also from the lost tribes in a certain way, and I also. My parents came, my father from Bulgaria, my mom from the Bronx, your parents from wherever. So we didn't get completely lost, but for 2,000 years we were quite lost.
Certainly.
So I'm saying that, those that are beyond the horizon. We are speaking of those that were taken so far off that they lost the contact that we did hold on to.
Certainly. So now you have the rabbis in a room, you have you in a room, and they had documents, maps, texts, prophecies, all together trying to decipher where, and you picked up and you went on a journey.
Well, let's say when I went through Afghanistan in 1974 or 5, and I was taken captive there by the Pashtun. And I thought that I was going to be executed in a certain way, either, by sword or by rifle or by hanging or whatever. And when it turned out, then I stopped concealing the fact that I'm from Israel. When I spoke to them and I told them I'm from Israel, and I thought that that's maybe the last sentence I will be saying in this life, then the elder of this tribe came up to me, and instead of pointing how to shoot or kill me, he hugged me and he told me that they are from the tribes of Israel. And so that's what started it off.
I thought I was going to come interview you about the Bnei Moshe, the children of Moshe. I just got a story within a story. One of the greatest stories I've ever heard. You were actually taken by a Pashtun village in Afghanistan. You thought this was the end, and it could have been. They found out you were from Israel, and the tribal leader came and gave you a hug and saying we're the same people. That story is worth everything in the world. That's a great story, because now we're in a generation where the Pashtun people and the Jewish people in Israel, we're trying to unite. We're trying to lock arms and figuring out how to unite. How do we become a family again? And there's a lot of speculation out there. Maybe some people who are saying, we don't believe this is true. People who aren't Pashtun or Jewish, but now all of a sudden you see stories like this where you're on the ground out there. So I appreciate you telling us that. So now you start off in Afghanistan. They let you go, and you can.
I went.
You went.
I was away. I was trying to get away from any contact with Jews, Israel, or anything. So in Afghanistan, when that sort of backfired onto me, I didn't take it deeply enough, but it went in. Mm-hmm. But I just went on my travels, and I went for 7 years. I was traveling by foot
towards the east,
towards anywhere that the path will lead me.
Okay, wonderful.
And then during those 7 years, I sort of rehabilitated myself, and then I also find my new contact to Israel and Torat Israel. This is a long and winding road, and then I came back home. Okay. And I married my wife, and we put up this farm.
And now you live in one of the most enchanted farm landscapes in all of Israel, and First Temple archaeology all around us.
Right now this is our Bet Knesset, this is our synagogue. It's part of a Byzantine agricultural farm, the ruins of a Byzantine agricultural farm from 1,300 years ago. And it was ruined when we got here. It was completely in ruin from the many wars that had passed through this land. And our condition, we made a certain condition to live somewhere in Israel. It means that we have to have a private source of water. We did not. That was our only, more or less, only condition. But in Israel, it's a difficult one to fulfill. So it turned out that there's a very ancient well on this land that was also caved in. But we saw that there was a bit of water at the bottom, so we understood that if we built it up and dug it down, we'll get to that water that we conditioned ourselves to. And so, so that's how we started.
Okay, that's great. I appreciate knowing where we really are in Israel.
Yeah, so this is a Bet Knesset in our
synagogue.
Yeah.
When you came back, did you have an idea that you may have found the location of this Sambatyon River where the children of Moses on the other side in waiting?
No, I gave that no thought. Okay. What I did know is I had no doubt about it. Seeing those Pashtun or Patan, or depending who speaks the word, but seeing their facial appearance, I was sure that I was meeting up with Jewish strong heroes. Yeah. They're very, very, very strong, very isolated in their life at that time. Now things have turned topsy-turvy because of the political and modern life that's developed on Earth. But at that time, they were completely disconnected from any kind of contact to the external world. And so I had no doubt. But later on, when I was approached by the rabbis and I started reading into then I got the picture of how this happened. Mm-hmm. I mean, what happened in the first Galut Ashur.
The first exile.
Yes, the first exile, and how they eventually managed to leave the second exile by going to the east. They wanted to come back home, but they couldn't come back home because it was conquered. And on the other hand, on the going eastward, they'd not be slaves anymore. So they were put on the eastern border, as far as I understood, because they were very strong. So they would actually guard the Assyrians by their being on the border.
So, and if like Mongol invasions were going to come in, the
There's-
Israelites would be a camp
That's
to the
right.
far east of the
That's
Assyrian
right.
kingdom.
Yes.
It's much more strategic than trying to kill everyone.
Yes, at that time they
Yeah.
were heading.
Displaced.
They were heading to the west at the time, Assyria, not to the east, and then so the Jewish tribes just flushed over to the east and scattered in the countries that were bordering the Assyria and went on to Japan and to wherever they eventually ended up in.
This is a coincidence or not, but you see within, I think, 70 to 80 years of the tribes of Israel going to the Far East, you have the Pashtun nation is formed. Within a few years of that, Buddhism is founded, and within a few years of that, the Shinto dynasty or culture is founded, all within a few years of each other. And all three people or cultures have some type of theology in common, very in line with Torah mysticism or Torah law. So I find that phenomenal. Now, you want to go back to search.
Well, I'll tell you, all my life I'm searching.
Yes.
It can be a lost goat in the hills of Judea, and it can be a lost tribe if I'm sent there. So this is my life. I also search for new chords on my guitar to play new tunes that I compose. And so, yeah, so it's nothing that I don't leave my life in order to do it.
Yeah.
But I'm living here. Thank God I have kids, I have grandkids here. I have a very great responsibility on the land that we hold here. But if I'm asked to go, and recently I've been, how do you say, one of the rabbis approached me asking me, when are we continuing? So I told him, listen, we're off season now. The winter is coming in, the high ranges are out. You can't travel in the high mountains at this time of the year. It has to be from the beginning of the summer towards the end of, or the middle of autumn. That's the only time that it can be done. So there are a few months to plant the fruit trees and the vegetable gardens here until it can happen. And by then, I hope we have a good mind and good...
Yes, 100%. And if and when you go back, should be soon, are you going to go start in that same area you left off of the Afghan mountain range to Tibet?
I have one more, I think, step to do in that direction. There's no certainty of where it is. Actually, the previous time, the last time I was sent, I wanted to go to do this last step, and then the rabbis all of a sudden told me, Amir, there's this Jewish guy that came from Burma. He told this amazing story of that he had heard the Sambatyon, and you have to go there. And it wasn't to my mind, but I am committed, so I went there, and we could find no base to this story of his. So I'm saying that, I'm trying to do the best I can, but yeah. So there is still one horizon more to go and check out before I can say yes or no or what.
Okay. Yes. So you're saying right now where we are is there's an active mission amongst the people of Israel, the Jews in the land, to seek these lost tribes out. And we're in this space of trying to find them. I actually read a letter. It was the students of the Vilna Gaon. Who was a great rabbi a few hundred years ago. They were in Sfat, and they wrote a letter to seeking these children of Moses behind the Sambatyon River. And I actually got a copy of the letter, and I helped translate it. It's now on the internet, open sourced. So if someone types in the Vilna Gaon Lost Tribes, that article will be first, that letter, where they're begging and pleading for these people to come back and reinstate something called smicha. Smicha means the certification that you are on the transmission of the Mosaic law teaching, which we stopped giving around 2,000 years ago. Today, our rabbi could still trace my rabbi to rabbi to rabbi all the way back to Moses, but missing this special ceremony called smicha. So we were begging for these Bnei Moshe to come back to Israel to reinstate smicha, In which case, when we have that, we can resurrect a biblical land again, so to say.
Okay, so we also were begging them, but we should also beg ourselves, because we know that everything depends on every single one of us. It's not, one isn't. I always say that there can be a king and there can be a sandal maker. The king without a sandal maker is not, he can't be a king. So each one has an important role. And we can't just sit around waiting for someone else to do. Each one has a special job to do in order to strengthen and to, to take care while one is away or whatever. We are arevim.
Mm-hmm. Guarantors.
Each to each other. And that's what, we have to realize this, and we can't forget it.
I certainly agree with that. That's like having an airplane missing a central piece. You have this whole structure without this one little bolt, the whole thing may not work. So I agree with you that our focus, everyone, like you said before we started filming, that everyone has a role that they have to do. You're the guy, the farmer who went on the journey. We had the cameraman in the room. We have the philosopher in the room. We have me trying to weave together some content in the room. Everyone's doing what they can for this mission. Mm-hmm. What we can leave off on is to expect a bright future ahead where you go out, as your previous stories had, miracles and you met tribes, that you should have success again. Mm-hmm. I do know if you do go out again, the leading rabbis of Israel will be supporting you. Will anyone be writing any letters to give you to bring?
In the previous times I left, I had a Megillah with me with questions that I should pass on to them if I.
So you're really a national representative. For this,
I will not say it. I will not put it up on that
underground
stage.
So to wrap this up, I just want to make one thing clear. We have the Jewish people today, which our tradition teaches us is potentially the descendants of the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi from the southern kingdom of Judea after there was a break in the house of Israel. There's a northern kingdom where 10 tribes went to the far east, and you had the southern kingdom of Judea. And when we speak about the lost tribes of Israel, we're not speaking about necessarily, even though you said, I'm lost, you're lost, we all made it back, we kind of had an identity for the last 2,000 years. This is a part of the people of Israel who have been missing for 2,700 years, who we haven't seen since. So from our perspective, from the Jewish people, do we internally feel like we're whole? Are we a complete nation yet without this missing part? Or are there opinions that say, forget them, like we're cool?
Well, I think that if we read into it, we have two different opinions, as always in the Jewish, because that's the way you can build something. If everyone is agreeing about something, then maybe you're missing the main thing, and you're agreeing on something wrong. So this way they test you. And so anyway, I know that there are many the greatest rabbis that are looking forward and waiting and approaching and trying and searching and sending and praying. And there are others that say that's what happened. And maybe this is our destiny, not to meet up with them. Mm-hmm. There are two opinions. I don't know who is right. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure that each one is trying to do his best and to say the truth. And we have to find this out, and that's why we're here. I mean, what excites me more than anything else is, living here in Israel and looking at I see the Jews from, let's say, Morocco, as opposed to the Jews from Romania, as the Jews from India. And each one, let's say the Indian Jews, they look Indian. The Romanian Jews look Romanian. The Moroccan Jews look Moroccan. And so I say, I had a horrible moment when I was in Morocco one time, and I read up about the Moroccan history of the Jews there. And then I read this horrible story of when they were conquered twice. They killed off all the men and raped all the women, more or less. Now we know this is not easy to speak of, and it's even harder to think of. But this is the kind of reality that the Jews have been going through for 2,000 years. Mm-hmm. And it's difficult to stand up and look in the eyes and to say, okay, that's why I'm blonde and he's black and he's whatever. But so if we're looking for the truth, we have to look the truth in the eye. And that means that we know that there are these 10 tribes that have scattered. And although they have all these modern devices, I'm always asked, so how can't they see them by the satellites and all that? So I say, yeah, okay, but person is always finding out new things. And so they see something from up, but they don't know how to interpret it. They don't know what they see. So there's still a lot more to find out, and we're simple in our belief that we have to do our job, and God will help us.
That was really well said. I appreciate it. I also like just to say on a final note, when we pray every day in the morning prayers as Jews, before we do the Amidah, the silent prayer, we say, Tzur Yisrael kuma be'ezrat Yisrael te'kunumecha Yehuda ve'Yisrael. Basically, we're speaking about this unification, and there's two separate entities, an entity called Yehuda, Judah, and an entity called Israel. Now, we're in Israel now. We have a national anthem is the Hatikva, where we say, Nefesh Yehudi Homia, the soul of of someone from Judah was longing, was burning for. We're referring to ourselves nationally here under the brand of Judah, and now we're seeking this thing called Israel. So I think there's something deep down embedded in our culture that is seeking them. And as you did mention, also there was an argument 2,000 years ago: are they returning? Are they not returning? And this was people recording a conversation they heard from their teachers at two different occasions. And one opinion said they do return. One opinion says they don't return. I would like to wrap up by proposing a solution to this that they weren't arguing. Now, we have, let's say, in Afghanistan, 25 million Pashtuns who say they're from the lost tribes. Maybe in Pakistan, there's 15 million of them. In India, 5 million of them. In Africa, we have the Igbo tribe, numbering 40 million people who have this identity. Is the future of this movement going to be converting everyone and moving them to Israel? I think that's not the direction to go personally. What I think it is you create a connection with these people, an intimate connection on sustainability and making sure everyone's okay, we have what we need, there's no conflicts. And to scale out Israel. Now, when I say that, I mean Israel now has the technology to make energy out of thin air, filter water, pump water, grow food. We're really growing in that field. Now, these people in Afghanistan are, a lot of them are in refugee camps. They're suffering tremendously. There's war, there's poverty, and the same thing with Africa. If we could start to create these relationships and scale out Israel to these people, not through military conquest, obviously, but spreading ourselves to other nations through this intellectual property, that could be some type of fulfillment of they're returning to us, but not literally returning geographically. We're not trying to move 100 million people to Israel proper. So according to the opinion that says they return, he says, yes, the lost tribes do end up uniting. According to the opinion that said in a different time, he says that they don't return. He meant to say they don't return geographically necessarily, but there will be a great unification. Mm-hmm. And I think it's already a little too late for that, because your story alone shows that you met a guy in the mountains of Afghanistan. He said it's Israel and you hugged. It's a living, breathing story, and I can only hope that we stay updated with you to hear how your next journey goes.
We're still on our way home.
Amen. It's incredible. Put it there.
Shalom.